Red Bull continues to complain after FIA decision, McLaren gets advice on how to handle team battle, and Ferrari's problems are getting worse. Let's get into the latest F1 news. So let's set the stage. The Canadian Grand Prix at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve was a wild one. George Russell snagged his first win of the 2025 season for Mercedes. With Max Verstappen hot on his tail in second, and young gun Kimi Antonelli scoring his first ever F1 podium in third. But the race ended under a safety car after a shocking collision between McLaren teammates Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri on the pit straight. Norris was out, and that crash sparked a chain reaction of FIA investigations that had everyone talking. Here's the deal. After the checkered flag, 7 drivers were summoned by the stewards for overtaking under safety car conditions. We're talking big names like Piastri, Antonelli, Esteban Ocon, Charles Leclerc, Lance Stroll, Carlos Sainz, and Pierre Gasly. Meanwhile, Red Bull's Yuki Tsunoda was already dealing with a 10-place grid penalty from earlier in the weekend, and Red Bull's team principal, Christian Horner, was not happy about how the FIA handled it all. Let's dive into the drama. All right, let's talk about these 7 drivers. So the race ends under safety car, and the stewards notice something fishy. After the checkered flag, these guys were overtaking each other while safety car signals were still up. Why is that a problem? Well, the rules are crystal clear. You can't overtake under safety car conditions, even after the race ends, because it's dangerous. Marshals could be on track, or emergency equipment might be deployed. Safety first, right? The FIA looked at the footage and confirmed all 7 drivers, Piastri, Antonelli, Ocon, Leclerc, Stroll, Sainz, and Gasly, broke the rules. But here's the kicker. They only got warnings. No penalties, no grid drops, just a slap on the wrist. The stewards even hinted that next time, they might not be so lenient, saying harsher penalties could be coming. Now, this is where things get spicy. Red Bull's Christian Horner was watching all this unfold, and he had some choice words about the FIA's decision. Let's get into that. Christian Horner, Red Bull's team boss, is no stranger to stirring the pot, and he didn't hold back after Canada. His big issue? Consistency. See, Red Bull's driver Yuki Tsunoda got hammered with a 10-place grid penalty for passing Oscar Piastri under red flag conditions during final practice. Red flags mean no overtaking, period, because it's a safety violation. Tsunoda dropped to P18 on the grid, finished P12, and extended his pointless streak to 3 races. Ouch. Horner's argument was simple. If Tsunoda got such a harsh penalty for a red flag infringement, why did these 7 drivers get off with just warnings for their safety car shenanigans? He told Planet F1, one would expect some form of consistency. And you know what? He's got a point. Tsunoda's penalty cost him big time, while the others walked away scot-free. Is the FIA playing favorites, or is it just hard to enforce these rules consistently? Let's pause for a sec. Drop a comment below. Do you think the FIA was too soft on those 7 drivers, or was Tsunoda's penalty too harsh? I want to hear your thoughts. Now let's zoom in on Yuki Tsunoda. This guy's had a rough 2025 so far. He stepped into Red Bull's second seat, replacing Liam Lawson, but he's only scored 7 points in 8 races. Compare that to Max Verstappen, who's racked up 101 points in the same time. Tsunoda's sitting P15 in the Drivers' Championship, and Canada was another tough weekend. Horner was asked about Tsunoda's race, and he started to say it was actually, but didn't finish the thought. Sounds like even Horner's frustrated. This whole situation's got Red Bull fans buzzing. Some are saying Tsunoda's not cutting it as Verstappen's teammate, while others think the FIA's inconsistent rulings are making it harder for him to shine. Either way, Red Bull's not just fighting rivals on track, they're battling the rulebook too. And with Max Verstappen sitting on 11 penalty points, one more could trigger an automatic race ban. Talk about pressure. So what's the takeaway from this Canadian GP chaos? The FIA's got some explaining to do about their consistency, and Red Bull's not letting it slide. Those 7 drivers dodged a bullet with warnings, but the stewards are hinting at tougher penalties in the future, and poor Yuki Tsunoda, he's got to shake off this penalty and prove he belongs in that Red Bull seat. Looking ahead, the next race is the Austrian Grand Prix, and all eyes are on Verstappen to avoid that 12th penalty point. Will Red Bull bounce back? Will the FIA tighten up their rulings? We'll be covering it all right here, so smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. Let's get interactive. In the comments, tell me, should the FIA have penalized those 7 drivers, or were warnings enough? And is Tsunoda the right fit for Red Bull? Drop your hot takes below, and I'll shout out some of my faves in the next video. Thanks for watching, F1 fam. Stay speedy, and I'll catch you in the next one. The 2025 Canadian Grand Prix was already a mess for Ferrari before the race even started. Charles Leclerc, their golden boy, had a nightmare weekend. It all kicked off in free practice 1 when Leclerc locked up at turn 3 and slammed his Ferrari into the wall. Ouch. The damage was so bad that the chassis needed replacing, ruling him out of FP2 entirely. Talk about starting on the back foot. This meant Leclerc missed crucial track time to test tires and setups, which, as we'll see, haunted Ferrari's strategy later. Fast forward to qualifying, and things didn't get much better. Leclerc could only manage P8 on the grid, while his teammate Lewis Hamilton nabbed P5. Not exactly the dream start for a team fighting for the Constructors' Championship, right? But the real fireworks? They happened during the race itself, over the team radio, where Leclerc and Ferrari's pit wall went head-to-head in a strategy standoff that's got everyone buzzing. Let's dive into the juicy details. So picture this, it's race day in Montreal and Ferrari's already playing catch-up. Leclerc's fighting his way through the field, but he's not happy with the team's strategy calls. Over the radio, we hear heated exchanges between Leclerc and his race engineer, Xavier Marcos Padros, aka Bozzy. They're arguing about whether to go for Plan B or Plan C. Leclerc's pushing for a one-stop strategy, thinking it'll save time, but Ferrari's not convinced. Leclerc: guys, we need to go for the one-stop. It's our only shot. Bozzy: Charles, stay calm. We're sticking with Plan C. Leclerc: audible frustration. This is not working. Yikes, right? Leclerc's out there battling for points, and he's basically begging Ferrari to change their plan. But here's the kicker. Italian F1 commentator David Valsecchi, who was covering the race for F1 TV, had zero patience for Leclerc's complaints. He straight up said Ferrari should tell Charles to shut up and drive. Bold words, Davide. Valsecchi's point was that Leclerc's constant radio rants were distracting the team from making clear-headed decisions. And, to be fair, Ferrari's strategy wasn't that bad. They ended up with P5 for Leclerc and P6 for Hamilton. But was it good enough? Let's break it down. Okay, let's get nerdy for a second. Leclerc wanted a one-stop strategy, meaning fewer pit stops to save time. Sounds great, right? But here's the problem. The Canadian GP track was tricky, with tire degradation and changing weather conditions. A one-stop was risky, and Ferrari thought a two-stop would give them more flexibility to react. Meanwhile, Mercedes nailed their strategy, with George Russell taking the win from pole. Leclerc later admitted that his one-stop idea wouldn't have worked because he couldn't match Russell's pace in clean air. So, maybe Ferrari's call wasn't as dumb as it seemed? But here's where it gets messy. Leclerc's frustration wasn't just about this one race. Ferrari's had a history of dodgy strategy calls, and Charles has been vocal about it before. Remember Monaco 2022 or Hungary 2023? Fans on X are losing it, with some saying Ferrari's holding Leclerc back, while others think Charles needs to trust the team more. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. After the race, Ferrari team boss Fred Vasseur wasn't about to let this drama fester. He sat Leclerc down for a heart-to-heart about his vocal strategy comments. Vasseur is a no-nonsense guy, and he made it clear that airing dirty laundry over the radio isn't the way to go. Like, imagine getting called into your boss's office because you were yelling at your co-workers on a Zoom call. That's basically what happened to Leclerc. Vasseur also pointed out that missing FP2 hurt their tire data, which led to their strategy struggles. He's got a point. Ferrari was playing with one hand tied behind their back. But here's the thing. Leclerc didn't just blame the team. He owned up to his mistakes, saying his crash in FP1 and errors in qualifying hurt Ferrari more than the strategy itself. That's big of him, right? It shows he's not just pointing fingers. Now, let's zoom out. Ferrari's 2025 season has been, let's call it, inconsistent. Charles Leclerc's got 3 podiums, which is awesome. But the team's also had some major flops. Remember the double disqualification in China? Or Lewis Hamilton struggling to match Leclerc's pace? Ferrari's sitting P2 in the Constructors' Championship, but they're not exactly breathing down McLaren's neck. This Canadian GP drama isn't just about one race, it's about trust. Can Leclerc trust Ferrari to make the right calls? Can Ferrari trust Leclerc to keep his cool? And with Lewis Hamilton in the mix, how's the team dynamic gonna hold up? Speaking of Hamilton, he had his own drama in Canada, hitting a groundhog and finishing P6. Never a dull moment at Ferrari. Fans on X are going wild over this. Some are Team Leclerc, saying he's carrying Ferrari and deserves better. Others are like, Charles, chill, let the team do their job. One post even joked that Ferrari's radio should just play Sweet Caroline to calm Leclerc down. Love the creativity, F1 Twitter. What's your take? Are you Team Charles or Team Ferrari? Let me know in the comments. Looking ahead, Ferrari's got the Spanish GP next, and they need a clean weekend. No crashes, no radio rants, just points. Can Leclerc and Vasseur put this behind them and deliver? Or is more drama on the horizon? I'm betting on the latter because, well, it's Ferrari. So, there you have it. The full scoop on Ferrari's Canadian GP meltdown, from Leclerc's crash to Valseki's savage shut up and drive comment. What a weekend. If you enjoyed this deep dive, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next F1 breakdown. We're covering every race, every drama, and every meme, so stick around. So let's rewind to Montreal, June 2025. McLaren's having a dream season. Oscar Piastri's leading the Drivers' Championship. Lando Norris is hot on his heels, and they're dominating the Constructors' standings. But then, boom, lap 67 of 70, and disaster strikes on the pit straight. Lando, chasing P4, dives inside Oscar at turn 10, gets a killer run out of the final chicane, and tries to squeeze through a gap that, spoiler alert, wasn't there. His front wing clips Oscar's rear tire, sending Lando slamming into the pit wall. Race over for Norris, while Piastri limps on to finish P4 after a safety car tire change. This crash wasn't just a racing incident, it was a wake-up call. Lando's now 22 points behind Oscar, and McLaren's perfect season just got messy. But here's the kicker. Lando owned it immediately, apologizing over team radio saying, "It's all my fault, stupid from me." Classy move, right? Let's talk about why this moment has Toto Wolff stepping in with advice. Enter Toto Wolff, the Mercedes mastermind who's seen his fair share of teammate drama. Cough, Hamilton versus Rosberg, cough. Toto's been there, done that, and he's got some choice words for McLaren. His big tip? Establish the rules early. Sounds simple, but it's pure gold. Toto's saying McLaren needs to lay down clear guidelines on how Lando and Oscar can race each other to avoid more costly crashes. Why? Because when you've got two drivers fighting for a world championship, things can get ugly fast. Toto knows this all too well. Back in 2016, Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg went from childhood friends to bitter rivals, crashing and costing Mercedes points. Toto had to play referee, setting strict rules to keep the peace. He's warning McLaren, don't let Norris and Piastri go down that road. The good news? Lando and Oscar aren't Hamilton and Rosberg. They've got a chill vibe, with Lando taking full blame and Oscar accepting his apology like a true pro. But Toto's point is clear. McLaren can't rely on good vibes alone. McLaren's boss, Andrea Stella, agrees the crash was not acceptable, calling it a misjudgment by Lando. But here's where it gets interesting. McLaren's not planning to slap team orders on their drivers yet. They're sticking to their papaya rules, letting Lando and Oscar race hard. Bold move, but is it risky? Toto thinks they need structure now before the championship fight gets too heated. Let's zoom in on Lando and Oscar's relationship. These two are young, talented, and super different. Oscar's the cool-headed Aussie, calm under pressure, leading the championship with 5 wins in 2025. Lando's the emotional Brit, a fan favorite with 2 wins this season, but he's been beating himself up over mistakes. After Canada, he said, "I owe Oscar an apology. I took a risk I shouldn't have." That self-reflection is why fans love him, but some, like Nico Rosberg, think Lando needs mental coaching to handle the pressure. Former F1 driver Ralf Schumacher even suggested McLaren might be quietly backing Piastri as their #1 driver. Why? Oscar's consistency and that 22-point lead, but McLaren's CEO Zak Brown insists both drivers are equal. This crash, though, has sparked debate. Can McLaren keep treating them the same, or will they need to pick a side? Toto's advice about rules could be the key to balancing this tightrope. So what's McLaren's next move? The Austrian Grand Prix is just around the corner, and all eyes are on how they handle Norris and Piastri. Will they follow Toto's advice and set firm rules? Maybe something like, no dive bombs on teammates, guys? Or will they stick to their free racing philosophy, risking more drama? McLaren's in a strong spot, leading the Constructors' Championship by a mile, but Toto warns that without clear guidelines, they could trip over their own success. The 2025 season's only 10 races deep, with 14 to go. Piastri's 43 points ahead of Max Verstappen, and Norris is 21 points behind Max. This championship is wide open, and McLaren's decisions now could make or break their shot at both titles. Toto's seen this movie before, and he's telling McLaren to rewrite the script before it's too late. One thing's for sure, Lando and Oscar's rivalry is heating up, and we're here for every second of it. Fans on X are going wild over this. Some are Team Lando praising his honesty, others are Team Oscar saying he's the real championship material. One post even called Toto the F1 Yoda for his sage advice. But there's also chatter about Max Verstappen's race engineer blaming Piastri for the crash. Drama alert! What do you think? Should McLaren set strict rules or let their drivers duke it out? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading every single one. For those who don't know, Adrian Newey is basically the Einstein of F1 car design. This guy's brain has powered over 200 race wins and a staggering 26 drivers and constructors championships across teams like Williams, McLaren, and Red Bull. If you've ever watched Sebastian Vettel or Max Verstappen dominate the track, you've seen Newey's genius in action. But in March 2025, after nearly 2 decades with Red Bull, Newey made the shock move to Aston Martin as their managing technical partner, and he's not wasting any time. His latest move? Bringing in Giles Wood, a simulation expert, and one of his trusted Red Bull colleagues, to supercharge Aston Martin's technical game. So who is Giles Wood, and why does this matter? Let's break it down. Giles Wood is no stranger to F1 success. Back in 2007, he followed Newey from McLaren to Red Bull, where he became a key player in their simulation and analysis department. This was during Red Bull's golden era with Sebastian Vettel, when they clinched 4 consecutive world championships from 2010 to 2013. Wood was the mastermind behind Red Bull's simulation tools, making sure their cars were dialed in before they even hit the track. After rising to technical director at Red Bull Advanced Technologies in 2014, he took a detour to work on autonomous tech at Apple in 2017. But now, Newey's pulled him back to F1, and he's joined Aston Martin as their simulation and vehicle modeling director. This is like assembling the Avengers of F1 engineering. Now let's talk about why Giles Wood's signing is such a big deal. When Newey joined Aston Martin, he didn't hold back about their weaknesses. At the Monaco Grand Prix in May 2025, he straight up called out their driver-in-the-loop simulator, saying it's not correlating at all with the track. For those who don't know, simulators are critical in F1. They're like super advanced video games that let teams test car setups and predict performance before races. If your simulator's off, your car's off, and you're basically flying blind. Newey said fixing this could take 2 years, but with Giles Wood on board, Aston Martin's hoping to fast-track that process. Wood's job? Make sure the simulator's data matches real-world performance so Aston Martin can design cars that actually deliver on the track. Aston Martin's been on a mission to become a championship contender, and Newey's arrival has sparked what team ambassador Pedro de la Rosa calls a total change in the team's vibe and structure. They've got a state-of-the-art factory at Silverstone, but Newey's made it clear the tools need work. That's where Wood comes in, alongside another big hire, Gioacchino Jack Vino, their new chief aerodynamicist with experience at Mercedes, Toyota, Renault, and Red Bull. Team principal Andy Cowell says these guys are already bringing energy and determination to the squad. It's like Newey's building his dream team to tackle the 2026 season, when new chassis and engine regulations could shake up the F1 pecking order. Let's put this in perspective. When Newey was at Red Bull, they went from underdogs to dominators, winning titles left and right. But since he left, Red Bull's felt the Newey effect, or rather, the lack of it. In 2024, their updates started missing the mark and they struggled to keep up. Meanwhile, at Aston Martin, the opposite's happening. Fernando Alonso, their star driver, went from barely scraping points to qualifying 5th in Imola, 6th in Monaco, and 6th in Canada after Newey's first updates. That's no coincidence. Newey's influence is already showing, and with Wood and Vino on board, Aston Martin's building a technical powerhouse. Now let's talk 2026. This is the big one for Aston Martin. New regulations are coming, and they're switching to Honda power units. Yep, the same ones that powered Red Bull's championship runs with Newey's designs. Newey's already working on the 2026 car, and with Wood fixing the simulator and Vino sharpening the aero, Aston Martin's got a real shot at jumping up the grid. Could they challenge the likes of McLaren, Ferrari, or even Red Bull? It's not just about the car, though. Newey's presence is a magnet for talent. Pedro de la Rosa says engineers are lining up to work with him, wanting to learn from the best and become the next generation of Neweys. That's huge for Aston Martin's long-term future. But here's where it gets juicy. There's been talk about Max Verstappen, yep, the 4-time world champion, potentially joining Aston Martin. Newey's worked with him before, and Honda's moving to Aston Martin in 2026. Sounds like a perfect fit, right? Well, Newey's keeping it real. He told Sky Sports that luring Verstappen is a pipe dream until Aston Martin builds a car fast enough to compete for titles. Verstappen himself said he's excited to see what Newey can do with Aston Martin, but he's staying focused on Red Bull for now. Still, you can't help but wonder, if Aston Martin starts winning, could we see Max in green? Let me know what you think in the comments. For now, Aston Martin's got Fernando Alonso, a 2-time world champion, who's fired up to work with Newey. Alonso's already feeling the boost from Newey's updates, and with Giles Wood tackling the simulator issues, the team's hoping to give him a car that can fight for podiums. But it's not just about 2025. The real test is 2026, when Newey's vision, Wood's simulation expertise, and Vino's aero skills could turn Aston Martin into a force to be reckoned with. Team owner Lawrence Stroll's betting big on this trio, and with Newey reportedly on a 5-year, $30 million a year deal, the pressure's on. So, what's my spicy prediction? I think Aston Martin's going to surprise everyone in 2026. With Newey, Wood, and Vino working together, plus Honda's engines, they've got the ingredients for a top-tier car. I'm not saying they'll win the championship right away, but don't be shocked if they're fighting for podiums or even a win by mid-season. And if they do, watch out. Max Verstappen might just start returning Lawrence Stroll's calls. What do you think? Is Aston Martin the next big thing in F1, or is it too soon to call? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's get the debate going. That's it for today's video, F1 fans. If you loved this deep dive into Aston Martin's revolution, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss our next video. Want more F1 news, driver rumors, or tech breakdowns? Let me know what you want to see next. And check out the article from planetf1.com that inspired this video, link in the description. Until next time, keep your eyes on the track, and I'll see you in the next one.